Hello everyone and welcome to Tome of Uselessness. I'm Dan, just doing a little solo cast here, talking about Mass Effect mostly. The reason I wanted to do this, of course, they just recently announced the Mass Effect Legendary or Remake Edition. I can't remember the exact title. And I have just recently finished a Mass Effect 3, so completing the trilogy. Never played it when it came out back in 2012, and during the last Steam Christmas sale, I was kind of casting about for something, and I saw that it was on for pretty cheap, with the expansions and etc. And so I hadn't played one in a while, and I was like, I kind of feel like something a little sci-fi. Let's play Mass Effect 3. Before I delve into that, I guess, and my thoughts on Mass Effect 3 and, the trilogy, but, I'm a huge fan of early BioWare stuff, and of course at the time when Mass Effect 1 came out in 2007, I was hyped, and it was like a day one pickup for me, and I played the heck out of it. And when the second one came out in 2010, same thing, I was super hyped, played the heck out of it. I was a little disappointed in Mass Effect 2 for varying reasons, and then when Mass Effect 3 was coming out in 2012, this was around the time when game publishers, and especially EA, who had purchased BioWare by this point, they were notorious for their monetization practices, DLC and everything. So I was not going to buy it day one. I didn't, and I just didn't buy it till literally 2020. Because, it definitely got a lot of negative press and a lot of hate from fans at the time. And so I was just kind of like, whatever. Maybe, one day I'll play it, and that day came along. Mass Effect 2, like I said, I was a little disappointed in it because at the time, I remember, I haven't played it since I played it back when it came out, but I remember being a little disappointed because they went away from more RPG stuff to make it more shooter, and, it just seemed like a little more of a casual direction. So I was a little disappointed in that direction for the series. It was really weird that it was kind of cool that they killed you in the beginning of the game. Spoilers. For a game that's over a decade old now. But then when they brought you back, you were, you weren't with your... They did, the same thing like they did in Mass Effect 1, where it was, gather your crew, but this time it's a different crew, and then, go do missions and stuff like that. And, the overall story was kind of cool, the endgame boss and, what the bad guys and the Reapers were doing. But the fact that you were working for Cerberus... I don't know, I guess they thought that it was, a cool twist on it, but then it kind of is, it interrupts the story flow of what they were going for, because, of course, that they were promising that Mass Effect was going to be, make your own story, and it's going to be this big, epic thing, and sure, that's probably some marketing speak, as we all found out in Mass Effect 3, but it does seem like it was... I don't know, I didn't really delve into it, maybe I should have, but, yeah, it just feels like it interrupts your story because they kill you for, 2 years or whatever. And then when you come back, all of your former crew are like, wow, I don't trust you anymore. And you're like, yeah, but we went through that adventure together and, we're mates. Nope. But the game itself was still a lot of fun and, still well-crafted and everything like that. And then I think this is where sort of some of the hate came from for Mass Effect 3 was a lot of the decisions you made in Mass Effect 2, especially if I recall correctly. Basically... they nullify it all in Mass Effect 3. So Mass Effect 3, as mentioned, came out in 2012. So I played the first two on Xbox 360, and then I played this recent one on my computer, as mentioned. And it was kind of cool. I liked how they had this, a tool that you could go through and then make all the same, or it kind of set you at the major decision points of every game, so you could kind of rebuild your story without having your previous save, because I didn't have my previous save. So I kind of liked that, and that was kind of neat, but then it's all the decisions you make, except for maybe the one about which character you sacrifice, are sort of nullified throughout the story of Mass Effect 3, because then you come up to, the Rachni, and it's did you do this thing? And then they just kind of, with one line, they just kind of, the character's well, we did this, and it didn't work. So it's you didn't feel like you were on a unique journey. You're just kind of on these rails to get to wherever location and whatever story beat that they wrote. And that would be fine if that's how they sold it, that you're just like KOTOR, you're just like, hey, I'm going through an RPG with a story, or Dragon Age, and I get to have my character and make my decisions, cool, but it's like these major story beats, you don't affect them. So I haven't played, like I said, the other two in a long time, but Mass Effect 3 definitely felt like it was a full shooter in its mechanics, and I don't know if that was just because, I played it on a computer, because it felt smoother, it felt better than I remembered playing through the game. The powers being on a global cooldown timer is kind of like a whatever, but it is great that you have 8 of them, and then you can actually get one from like one of your companions or a quest and then add it in, so to kind of customize your character a little more, which I like that. It was great though in that game to see all of the characters you've met essentially from game 1 and 2, to interact with them in some way, or to at least have like a quest with them, and see how they have either changed or grown through the time. So that was really good. I did hear, because part of the major hate we're going to get to is, of course, the ending. But some people were championing that. They're like, hey, the story's still good and it's still a fun game. So I do agree with that it's still got some cool story, still got some cool characters, and some cool moments. The full shooter stuff is hilarious, though, because as, of course, a third-person shooter, you just, you walk into a room and you just see a whole bunch of chest-high walls and pillars, and you're like, no one designs a room like this. But c'est la vie, right? You're going to get into something and get in there. There were some cool fights, some cool encounters, and some cool stuff there that I did enjoy, and some neat story beats with, the characters, and some cool decisions that you can make, despite the fact that it's galaxy-ending wartime. So here's the thing. So I played this game so many years later, so it's been patched. Expansion has come out, and like I said, I got it all. So the main expansion, or one of the expansions, the Leviathan Expansion, has a ton of story and a ton of exposition, and I don't know, I could see the frustration of people when they played the game with it when it came out, because the Leviathan Expansion story elements fully explain so much that the ending of the game, I don't know if it would have made sense without it all. You know what I mean? The story beats that you get told, and when you find out the major reveals of the major reveal. So it all made sense to me, and I was like, okay, I get it, and I understand where they're going with this. But so I don't know if at the time any of that would have been explained. Maybe you could have found some conversations or some small data log stuff or what have you, but I don't know if it got that same level of explanation. Because when I got to the end of the game and I was going through the conversation stuff, with the AI and stuff, and I was like, that might not have made any sense without me knowing the origins and all the story I got from the Leviathan DLC. So a huge misstep there. Again, so I don't have that frame of reference because I didn't play it back in the day, but I could definitely see where people would have felt very gypped and very confused and very annoyed by what was going on and by the ending story, that being revealed so much later and in just this weird piecemeal way that, boy, that would have been weird and annoying. So the ending. Tons of hate for the ending. And here was my kind of thing where it's the conclusion I got in the story, I was fine and happy with, and, it all made sense. But the way it got there was definitely mishandled and kind of felt cheap or muddled, I guess, or, you know what I mean? Because it's literally, you go through this big epic journey, blah, blah, blah. You get, you have these conversations, and it was good. It was well written. But then it's just choose one of 3 things. And I think if I recall, I could be wrong, I think the middle one might not have existed when the game first came out. I think they patched it quickly because they were people were like, oh, you mean you didn't like our 2 conclusions? Because the game was always like KOTOR, it's only got the binary good bad kind of thing. So I think they added that 3rd one. But yeah, it just feels like after everything your characters went through, after this whole big journey and this huge big war and everything your character went through, and then it's just just choose one. So yeah, it seems like they could have just handled it better through the conversation with the AI at the end, or like looking at your character's reputation, because, like I said in some previous talks with Devin, that it's like I usually do like a good guy playthrough and a bad guy playthrough, and then if I play again, like I do like a whatever playthrough, whatever I feel like. But so it was the first time playing through, so I was like, I'm going full good guy playthrough here. So it should have just looked at my reputation score and been like, clearly this is the logical conclusion this character is going towards, and just done it. Or, like have the AI say something and then your character is just like reacts and, gives you an option. Anyway, so I don't know, like that's again my thoughts on that, where it's just like, not mishandled, but could have been smoother, let's say. I don't know, I thought it was kind of cool overall, and it did follow the trilogy fine and well, in that story that it's like, okay, these Reapers come in, kill all sentient or high-level life, and then the galaxy is reset every 50,000 years. And, it's good, decent thread, and it's pretty cool. And it's kind of interesting because it was kind of cool in the third one where you meet a Prothean who was, of course, there from the last cycle, and, he's not what is expected, and talks about his history and his civilization's war with the Reapers. So it was cool, and I like that. And I guess because in 1 and 2 especially, it's always built up that, like, you got no chance against any Reapers, but then we find out from the Prothean and from yourself that it's like, well, you can fight them off, and, like, their war went for, like, a century against them. So you're like, okay, so there's some time asked to try some stuff and everything. So, yeah, I liked that. And, standard sci-fi stuff, but it was a lot of cool stuff, and I did enjoy it at the end of the day. If you've never played Mass Effect, and you're interested in some sci-fi, you can either pick up, I think all 3 would be pretty cheap now, especially during a sale, or they do have this Legendary Edition coming out with like some, looks like, I didn't look at the trailer, but I saw some screenshots, and there was some updated graphics and some good looking stuff like that. They did say that they were going to shy away from, because Mass Effect 3 had a multiplayer mode, which obviously I didn't play, and they were going to shy away from trying to like update that and focus more on updating things from in the single player, which cool. That's Mass Effect was always a single player RPG to me, so sounds like it's going to be kind of cool. Point being, grab that or grab them at your leisure, and they were a lot of fun and enjoyable, really. And at the same time that I purchased Mass Effect 3, I also purchased Mass Effect Andromeda, which was released in 2017. Same situation where I was kind of like, well, this game's been out for 3-4 years now. There's probably some either DLC and patches and stuff like that. And so I picked it up again for pretty cheap. And I had zero knowledge of Mass Effect Andromeda. The only thing I had heard was that it was kind of glitchy and felt rushed, and people didn't really like it, and it was made by a different studio, and so it didn't get all the resources it needed, and stuff like that, like behind the scenes stuff where it affected the final product. And I just kind of like was like, okay, whatever, move on. Like I had a little bit of sci-fi kick, so I rolled right from Mass Effect 3 into Andromeda just to see what all the fuss was about. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I again was playing on my computer, and unfortunately my computer is quite old and I haven't had a chance to update it. So I was playing on a lower setting that I would have liked, because the game looked pretty good. Like the graphics were pretty great and everything like that. And so that's the kind of stuff like surface level that should be good nowadays, right? But I did like the mechanics of the game itself. Like the shooting and the powers usage and everything like that was really smooth and felt very like snappy, and like it did what you want when you wanted it to, which I liked. And the powers now not having on the same global cooldown was pretty cool, so you can set up chains and combos, which I enjoyed. But a huge negative talking about that is I can get to that more, but you only have 3 of them at a time, during a loadout. And I was just like, what? How could you go from 8 to 3? like I said, especially playing these back to back. So that felt like a huge step back, in my opinion, because again, having multiple powers, that's not new. I mean, World of Warcraft, you have tons of them. In every MMO, you have a ton. Again, Mass Effect 3, you had 8. So that was definitely a huge negative for me. But let's not talk negatives just yet. Let's talk about some more positives. I did like the new conversation prompts where during a conversation and something you could do something, it would tell you or at least give you a hint about what you were about to do. Whereas in the previous ones, it would only just show you like, oh, this is the good guy option. Or it's not even, sorry, it would just flash up like good guy action or bad guy action. And you would hit one of the triggers to do one of them. This one, it at least would tell you that it's like, oh, you're going to save this person or you're going to shoot them or whatever. So I liked that a lot because at least then, again, when you're playing through and you're kind of playing a character the way you want to play, you could do the action or not do the action. Whereas the other one, it would just kind of be a prompt and you wouldn't know what was about to happen. So I like that a lot. I also liked in the conversation tree, whereas again, the other ones just had like, good guy thing, bad guy thing, middle thing, or whatever. This one had multiple options, and then they also would tell you, there would be a little icon to kind of tell you, it's like, oh, this is like a more logical answer, or this is more of a fun answer, or whatever. I think there was 7 or 8 different icons. And so I like that again a lot, because then you can play your character how you want to play it, or you could have different responses to different characters. That's kind of how I played it. Like with like some people, I'd be more like jerk militaristic, or one other person I'd be a little more friendly or whatever, like because you're like, oh, that person's feeling sad. Whatever you want to do. So again, I liked that a lot, and that was a really cool update to the conversation and make it less just kind of like always pick the one option because I'm playing the good guy or playing the bad guy. The setting of course itself was pretty cool to be like, okay, we're no longer in the Milky Way, boom, to Andromeda, and it's 600 years later it took them the journey, and you find out through the story that it's like the galaxy is not the same like they saw it 600 years ago. Okay, that makes sense. And so that was kind of cool and a neat idea to just be like, we can make up anything we want. Because even like a show like Star Trek takes place in the Milky Way. So it was kind of cool that it's just like they could just do whatever the heck they want. And then back to what I was saying before, the skill diversity. There was a lot of skill diversity, and it was pretty cool that each, not job, but it was like, like your tech or your biotics and your soldier skills. There was a lot of choices in there and a lot of like variety. So you could actually, again, customize your character more. And it was cool how they introduced the profiles, because you have like an AI that helps you out, and you could be more tech focused and then switch it to like soldier focus or biotics or whatever kind of thing. So I liked that a lot. Again, I just thought it didn't mix well because it's like there's 8, let's say, I could be wrong on that number. There's X number of active tech skills, for example, and then there's a few passive ones. You only get to have 3, and then it's like if you want to have access to them all, you have to set up multiple profiles with just like 3 at a time, and then it's just kind of like, it's overly micromanaging it than just give me all 8 because I chose that or whatever, right? Either way, more than 3 for sure. Like, it just seems like that was a decision that they made so that they could try to balance the multiplayer, but I don't know. But I really did like that because then it was cool because my character, talking about the tech, I was like, okay, I'm going to be a tech person because in Mass Effect 3 I played a biotic, so I was like, oh, switch it up, do some tech. And so I did the tech and soldier stuff to, boost my skills, and then it created like this new profile, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So the amount of points you spend in certain trees would activate and make you better at certain things, and then it would let you choose, or at least you could customize and be like, oh, in more combat situations, this is what I want, or I want my tech, and this and that. So yeah, did like that. Was smooth and enjoyable. The story was pretty good. I mean, it was basic sci-fi stuff again. There definitely seemed like there was some Halo influence, or at least if you've played a lot of Halo, the bad guys were very similar in their kind of what they were wanting to do. But it's new for the Mass Effect universe. But I did feel like, again, they do the thing where there's an ancient civilization that used to be in the galaxy and you're finding their stuff, which would be fine on the surface, but then it's like you have to go and you're activating their stuff. It kind of felt like it took away the harshness or the accomplishment of like, we're going to a new galaxy and we're going to build our civilization from what we have, and then it's like, oh, we're just finding these ancient relics that's going to like terraform the planets, and it's like, what? Come on. Like, we've seen that before, and like you did it in Mass Effect. Like, so it just kind of seemed like they could have come up with a unique idea, or not even have the ancient civilization thing there, and that's fine. Or you find their relics, but it's, they're inactive, but we can use some of the tech. Whatever. So story was kind of middling in that sense, but I did like the implementation of, we're fighting these bad guys, they're weird. You find out through the story that they're basically like sort of Parasite-esque, where, they take people, they capture them, and then they quote unquote elevate them to become part of their race. And I was like, okay, kind of cool, because, it's a horrifying premise, and, zombies and, everything like that, where it's your own people get turned into the enemy, and then now you're killing your former allies and stuff like that. And that's kind of horrifying, right? So I like that. So that's some of the negativities. A lot of the tasking that you're doing on the planets is kind of repetitive, because it's always just like, go here, find this, shoot some guys. And again, that's fine if that's what you're in the mood for. It's not that big a deal, but there's quite a lot of repetition in there. The 3 powers thing I pretty much harped on multiple times already. And this was something I kind of read a little bit about, but the game did feel rushed, and it felt like it was missing resources to flesh it out, because there are some story threads that are just dropped, where either they were planning on, again, a trilogy of games, or at least a sequel, that it didn't get, for the moment anyway. They haven't announced anything. So it's too bad, because there was some kind of cool story elements and some threads that were just dropped and never answered. Like, it even asks you at one point, who, if your shepherd was a male or female in their last game. But at least I found no reason and why they asked you. And I'm like, okay. At this point, I did encounter one glitch, which was kind of odd. It was near the beginning of the game, so it was kind of like I almost regretted like kind of purchasing and playing the game, because it was right in the beginning, and you're just, you're supposed to land on the first planet, and the characters just sat in atmosphere, and I was like, oh, maybe I was like, oh, this is really building the tension here. We're going through this atmosphere, and I was like, this seems like it might be glitched here. But my point being is that I didn't really encounter too many glitches. Again, there's been some patches and stuff, so that wasn't a detriment really for me. Unlike, again, people who might have played this when it first came out. So the game did have a multiplayer. I didn't play it. It sounded kind of neat. It sounded pretty standard stuff. Like there was a horde mode and some, capture the flag and some strike stuff. I don't know. But here's my thing. This game, Mass Effect 3, and many other games as well, I feel like, they do a multiplayer mode because they're like, it'll keep people playing, and then there's some sort of microtransaction thing usually related to it, or timed thing, or whatever. But it's like, the multiplayer I want in this game is I want to play with a friend playing through the game. And like Neverwinter Nights did this, where when you got into a conversation, one person controlled the conversation, and when you're out of the conversation, you're controlling your character. Like, I don't understand how that kind of co-op play, I guess maybe someone pitches it and they just always shoot it down. I don't know, because it'd be so much more fun, especially in Andromeda, where the maps are quite open world-ish and stuff like that, where it's like someone's playing Ryder and I play one of their companions that they chose, and during combat time, I get to be that guy or that girl or that character running around doing stuff. And during a conversation, they control Ryder, make all the decisions, cool. It's their story, but I'm their companion along. Like, that's what I want. Like, and that would be fun. And like Final Fantasy VI did that way back in the day on the Super Nintendo, where player one controlled the characters when you were on the world map and did the talking, but when you got into combat, you could split up your characters. And, my brother and I used to play Final Fantasy like that all the time. It was super fun. I don't know. Like, that's the kind of multiplayer I want, and I think it'd be great. But anyway, that's wishful thinking, because that's unfortunately not the kind of games they make right now. Or at least not the multiplayer they implement. I did enjoy Mass Effect Andromeda. I mean, I played it for 66.6 hours, apparently. Like, and I 100%ed all the planets, and, did everything I could. And, like, I just didn't go around, like, scanning every planet and every system and stuff like that, because that's kind of super tedious work. So I was just, like, not into that. But, yeah, I enjoyed the game. I enjoyed the mechanics of it. I just wish there was some expansion on like the power usage ability, because there were so many cool sounding powers, but I was like, well, there's no point. I can only use 3 of them, so I feel like that was a bit of a detriment there, but I thought there was a lot of cool stuff going on in the game, and it was enjoyable. And it's, again, they haven't announced anything, but I was like, it would have been cool if they wanted to continue with that. I would have been into it, but we'll see how that goes. So yeah, I don't know. Talking a lot of Mass Effect here. I think so far, if you've gleaned anything from my conclusion, is overall they're worth the playthrough. There's some cool story, some cool decisions, and some cool mechanics, and a lot of some sci-fi fun. Also, real quick, I did just finish Breath of the Wild literally today. I got it way back, a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago at this point. And I was like, you know what? I really should actually play through and finish that game. So yeah, I played through that. I feel like the game is really great. If you have a Switch, I'm sure it's in your library already, but definitely worth the playthrough. I just never felt like I had a good handle on the mechanics of the combat. Like, the locking seemed less accurate than like the N64 one, but the boss fights were a lot of fun. Like, I felt like I had a good handle when I was fighting just like a boss, but like random in the world encounters with like 4 or 5 dudes, I was like, this is chaos. But anyway, so yeah, that's some video game talk. Mass Effect, check it out. And if you want to, respond or send me any comments, we have our email, of course, tomeofuselessness@gmail.com. You can check out our website as well, and then we got links to our social media as well as other episodes with Devin and I. We're on iTunes and Spotify and Amazon and Google Music, wherever we can be. Hopefully we're there. Check us out. Thanks so much for listening. Stay safe.